What's up everybody, Daniel back for week 3 in my Startup Ortho Practice video series. Let's jump right into it. Week 1, I'm back in New York City. It's January 2024. Not a whole lot happened this first week, but I did continue to work on my business plan and do some edits with my dad over email. Another thing I was starting to do was think about which type of practice management software I want to use in the future. Some of the top names that I saw after an online search were Dolphin, Tops, Ortho 2, and Ortho Track. So I started reaching out to some of my orthodontic colleagues and asking their opinions about which practice management software they use and what they like and dislike about them. After doing a little bit of detective work, it seems like most people with PCs in their office will use Dolphin, and most people with Macs will use Tops. In week 2, things started to get a little bit busier. I started to think about which brackets and aligners I might want to use in my practice. We used a lot of American orthodontics products during my residency, and I felt pretty comfortable with these brackets. I was thinking that if I need to be a little bit more hands-on as my practice is growing, that I'd prefer a self-ligating bracket. So I reached out to the rep that I met during my residency, and I started to let him know about my plans to open up an office and get an idea about the deals that are out there for new grads. I thought that any potential savings I can get during my first big order would be really helpful. Another thing that happened this week was I emailed the dental sales rep who's helping me find an office location, and I told him my top 3 choices. Since I'm back in New York now, I asked if he could go check out the 3 sites in person and give me his feedback. He got back to me saying he'd be happy to go. He just had to organize a date and time with the real estate agent, and then he would go in person inside the suites to take a look around. In week 3, I heard back from the American Orthodontics rep, who I knew from my residency in Toronto, and he also put me in touch with another rep who was covering the area where I'll be working a little bit outside of Toronto. We talked a little bit back and forth about creating an account with them, the types of deals that are on the table, and also planned tentatively to set up a meeting for a dinner together next time I'm back in Ontario. One really cool thing about AO is that when you buy brackets, you acquire points that you can spend on other products and materials that they have, and this helps you to save costs as you buy more and more products with them. So this type of deal might be something that you want to look for when you're choosing a bracket supply company. The dental sales rep also got back to me. We had a quick chat on the phone about his general impressions when he went in person. So the visibility from the road, the parking situation, the square footage, the lighting, and also the shape of the office, which is really important when you're trying to design a nice layout and flow to your clinic. He said he would have preferred that I was with him in person because he didn't want to be making such an important decision for me. So what we did was arranged a date where my parents would go with him and the real estate agent, and they would call me in over FaceTime so we could all check out the spaces together. That get-together actually was arranged very quickly. So by the end of that same week, the 4 of them were there in person, and I was on FaceTime, and we were walking through the spaces. I'll try to give you a quick description of each of the 3 spaces that we looked at. The first one was in a medical building with a nice big parking lot, easy access from the road. It was a little bit further back within the building, so there wasn't a lot of natural lighting in there, but there was a beautiful clinic in there previously. There were nice marble floors. It was really well designed and laid out. It was around 4,000 square feet, which is a little bit on the bigger side of what I was hoping for, which could be a bit of a problem because it might be a lot of space that I'm paying for and not using. Another downside to this clinic being so nice was that a lot of it would actually have to be torn up in order to make it into an orthodontic practice. So some of the marble floors and the walls that they had in there would have to be scrapped to make way for my office. The second space that we went to was 5 or 10 minutes down the road. It was in more of a commercial plaza. It was facing the road, so it had good visibility, but it did share a parking lot, and there was a really busy restaurant right beside it. So initially a little bit concerned about the parking in this area. Inside, it was a more suitable size. It was 2,200 square feet. The shape of it was a long, narrow rectangle. Again, we were a little bit concerned that although the square footage was good, the shape of the office might make it a little bit difficult to design an office with a nice flow to it. So because of the shape of the office and the potential parking lot issues, especially during busy lunch or dinner times, I was a little bit concerned that this office might not be the best for me. The first office seemed a little bit big, the second seemed a little bit small. The third option that we saw, it seemed to be the Goldilocks option, somewhere right in the middle. It was 2,500 or 2,700 square feet, depending on if a little section at the back was included. It had a little bit better parking situation. It was right near a Starbucks, and it just seemed to have an overall better shape to it. There was some nice natural lighting coming in from the front. So this office seemed to have the nicest mix of features. That Starbucks is a really great feature as well, because parents can go get a coffee during an appointment. I can get a coffee before work, so I did really like that being there. So by the end of this grand tour of the 3 office spaces, I think everyone was on the same page that this third option was probably my best bet. During the 4th week of January, I reached out to a lot of different people. I spoke with a rep from Dolphin, the practice management and imaging software. We arranged a 1-hour Zoom call where he showed me some of the features of Dolphin, including the things I already knew, like Dolphin practice management and imaging, but in a little bit more detail. And he also showed me some of the features I wasn't as aware of. So some of the things that Dolphin can do for patients, including a downloadable app they have for patients to access their files, their finances, check their appointments. Also some of the communication features like texting, appointment reminders, managing emergencies, things like that. So it was really nice to get a more thorough understanding of what Dolphin could offer my practice. We also discussed the pros and cons of the regular version of Dolphin versus their newer web-based version and the cost differences associated with those. The rep also told me that some of the best times to make a purchase are near the AAO meeting. It's this year in New Orleans. He said that even if you can't get to New Orleans, to reach out around that time, and that might be my best bet to save a little bit of money on my purchase if I do go with Dolphin. And from my experience over the years, I think that this rings true for most companies. The AAO is a really good opportunity to buy and save big on a lot of different products. I also reached out to a rep from Dibs AI, which you may or may not know. It's an indirect bonding company. They use AI to help align the teeth, and you can ship them your brackets and they'll send the printed trays with the brackets already loaded back to you. I think that indirect bonding is something I want to invest in, again, at least for the beginning, where I'll probably be more hands-on. I'll hope to have some quicker appointments to free up time throughout the day. After speaking with the Dibs rep, I got a sense of how much this would cost, the workflow, the turnaround time, things like that. So it was, again, really informative. And their website also has a lot of great information on there. The last person I reached out to this week, and we all knew this day was coming, was a banker. So he's with one of the Canadian banks. It's someone that my mom knew. She put us in touch. And we just had a quick phone call where I told him a little bit about myself, that I'm planning to open up a new orthodontic practice. And he said that he would get an email to me with a list of things that he would need from me going forward. And we also plan to set up a Zoom call for the upcoming weeks where we could get into the finer details of how getting a big loan from the bank would work. The month ended with a little bit of turbulence. The landlord, who was in charge of that third office space that I really liked, he got back to us saying that there was this back corner of the office we didn't think was included, but he wanted me to take on that back area as well, which would take the square footage from around 2,600 up to closer to 4,000 square feet, which again is more than I really wanted to have, especially this early in my career. Maybe one day I'll need that space. depending on if I want to grow my practice or bring in an associate or partner, or maybe I'll just want to keep my office a little bit smaller. So it felt a little bit uneasy thinking about taking on so much space. It seemed like this option wasn't really as viable anymore. We were gonna still try to do a little bit of negotiating to see if we could make any progress on this space, but not looking great as of right now. To me, it felt like back to the drawing board. We either reconsider one of those first 2 spaces, or we might have to start with a fresh search, checking out some office spaces that we hadn't considered yet. The takeaways from month 2, I tried to get in touch with people from companies who have products or services that I can see myself using in my future practice to make a connection, get a little bit more in-depth information on what they offer and the associated costs. And then most importantly, things got a little bit more serious with me trying to pinpoint the exact location that I want to open up my office. Unfortunately, like I said, the 3 spaces we took a peek at all had their pros and cons, and the one that I thought would be the best is looking like it might not really be a feasible option in the end. Given that 10 to 12 month timeline I mentioned in the last video, we're sort of starting to fall behind by not having an office location decided upon yet. So I'm really hoping by the end of month 3 that I'll have decided on the location and I'll have signed a lease so we can continue to progress. I'll leave you with that cliffhanger, and that wraps up month number 2. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you for month 3.